we're bringing you all you need to succeed in the real estate business. It's Spilling the LT, brought to you by Lawyers Title, telling you what it's really like to work in real estate.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Spilling the LT with Lawyers Title. My name is Tamara Gady. I'm the Director of Collin County Sales for Lawyers Title, and I have two amazing guests with me today. They are not only top producing realtors, but they're also really great friends of mine. And so I wanted them to come in and have a conversation with us today. We're going to talk about current market conditions because that's all anybody wants to talk about in real estate. But they are also very savvy investors and have been kind of my mentors throughout my investment experience. And so I wanted them to talk about some of the creative ways that they're handling their investments today. And then we'll just see where the conversation leads us from there. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dave, I have David and Lisa Russell with me today. They are with the Russell team with Compass Real Estate in Southlake, Texas. And let's see, you have a combined 30 years in the business.
30 years.
And I've known you guys for at least 10 of that, I would think.
That's right.
And then just over the years, we've created a really great relationship. And so I wanted them to come in and share with you today. They're very savvy at what they do, and we'll have some great conversation today. So let's start with current market conditions. I mean, we were just talking about an article that CNN put out yesterday about a buyer in Austin that bought about a $500,000 house. And in order to win the offer, he bought the sellers their new house for another almost $500,000, totaling $1 million deal. And so our market is unprecedented. Is not even, I don't even know what word it is anymore.
I call it bananas.
Bananas
It's
is
bananas.
a good word. Bananas is a good word. I mean, I don't even know what else
That's
to
right.
say. So,
That's right.
And now I know from talking with you that you are winning offers
Yes.
without some of these extreme situations coming into play. And so I would like for you to share some of your strategies on how you're helping buyers win offers.
Definitely.
So it's a lot of it just has to do with just how you tactically write the offer. It's not just price and going 10 or 20 or 30% over. It's a key part is having a conversation with the listing agent. What does this seller need? What's their motivation? Do they, and then trying to interpret from that listing agent, is certainty or money most important to that seller?
And we did have that conversation.
Yeah.
So do they want to make sure that they close on the home, or do they want the most money?
That's
so
right.
what are you finding?
Combination of the both.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are sellers that will take a little bit of a lower price to know that the loan is already underwritten.
Yep.
So that the buyer's already credit approved. The buyer's waived inspection period or the unrestricted right to terminate, the option period. They have waived HOA documents, so they're waiving all of the contingencies and closing in the time frame that the seller needs. Not always the most money wins.
That's right. Earnest money also, we've noticed,
Earnest
makes
money?
a big difference too. You know, sometimes when it's a tie between the two and all things are equal, the party that's putting up the most earnest money gives certainty to the seller also.
Well, that's your skin in the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
That's right.
you don't get that back.
That's right. That's right.
And we're seeing, you know, as a title company, a record number of contract terminations and have since October.
Yes.
So we know buyers are putting in offers on multiple properties at
That's
once.
right.
We know buyers are relocating here from other places and they're putting offers in sight unseen, which is causing some of this, right? So they're not being able, you know, the pictures look beautiful
Yeah,
on
that's
MLS
right.
and Realtor.com and Zillow, right? But that isn't necessarily what you're going to see when you get there. And so I think that sellers are now, and listing agents, savvy listing, they're wanting that higher earnest money amount.
Well, they want, if in the event that you get an option period, it's a significant option fee. So in many of our transactions, we've won, not been the highest bidder, but we've offered a significant amount of money in option fee. So the buyer has a lot to lose if they terminate that contract.
How do you feel about no option period?
Oh, we've done that. We've done that.
We've done it,
scares
but
me.
I personally don't like it.
I don't like it
No.
because it benefits the buyer to have at least a short inspection period, and it benefits the seller because that's non-refundable money, right? if
It
they
does.
terminate.
It depends on the buyer, however, and the property. If you're purchasing a home that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, or, you know, I looked at one yesterday that was built in 2004. It was meticulously maintained. Everything, the air conditioning system had been replaced. The water heater was less than 10 years. All the mechanical systems were in remarkable condition. And it looked like Mr. and Mrs. Clean lived in the home. So as investors, we've purchased homes without inspections and option periods. That's how we win sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
So with a home like that, I would be less concerned as a realtor or as a buyer myself about a home inspection or the option period. And for those buyers that are concerned about it, I recommend a significant amount of option fee.
Yeah.
There's a seller out there that will, for $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000, they'll take the chance that buyer is going to terminate, and they get to keep that money.
Correct. And that pays for their time to have the house off MLS,
that's right.
right?
For a whole week.
Yeah.
We've had on listings. We've had that happen.
We have. And the timing on it works out well too, because if you execute on a contract on Monday and you have a 2-day option period and they opt out, you're back on the market for the weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much
the seller
works
made
out.
a couple grand.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
I agree. I actually have one realtor client that brings a general contractor with them when they tour the home as a way to identify potential problems up front.
Yeah.
So they don't get caught in this option issue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that's where it really, as a realtor, it's incumbent upon us to have some basic knowledge about the house and structural issues, mechanical issues. Is it R22 refrigerant or R410A? What's the cost of replacing that system so that the buyers are more educated?
That's right.
We still have a lot of those old AC units
A lot
out
of
there.
those
Yeah.
cast iron plumbing is a big
yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to you about a rental, you're like, be careful.
Yeah.
That you're
That's right.
cast iron
Yes.
plumbing.
Cast iron, no
Yes.
bueno.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
That's
I
right.
think, you are having to be so strategic about how you construct the contract. I've told many realtors that you're having to know the contract so intimately in a way that you've never had to know it before.
That's right.
You have to be able to yield every section to your advantage to try to create a creative offer for your buyer, right?
Yep.
What do you think about this? The new HOA addendum that has the blank to cover all fees, reserves, charges, everything. We were talking in our mastermind about how to make sure to cover all the fees, right? Can you put 100% in that blank?
Right.
That's right.
And the answer is yes, but then you need to also understand what you're paying 100% of, because there's a neighborhood, a subdivision in Frisco that they have a 1% transfer
There's
fee.
a few of those around the metro.
There is.
And that could turn into a really hefty amount for the buyer to pay.
Yes.
Right.
So how are you doing your due diligence ahead of time to make sure that if you do put that in the blank, that you're covering your buyers? Your buyers are very aware of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So generally, if it's an HOA, I'm with 15 years and all the transactions I've done around the Metroplex, I pretty much know where all of those are at. And if I have a question about that, then I go to title people who know those answers.
That's right. That's right.
Are your buyers willing to do anything?
We have not yet. So in our business, I typically represent the buyers. I have not yet recommended or had a buyer waive the contingency of the HOA.
Okay.
They're all kind of what normal negotiations would be on that in terms of pay a few $100s or something. Most listing agents really don't pay attention to that HOA document. They're paying attention to earnest
option.
That's right.
money, closing, approval, cash. They're really not paying much attention. I've had zero resistance on leaving that addendum in the contract.
Interesting. I mean, you guys are winning offers and without having to go to some of these extremes. And so
We've been very fortunate.
I really wanted you to share your strategies about that.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
I'll just say, and I'll just mention, as a listing agent, I would love it if agents would just follow the instructions that are included in MLS. It's very interesting.
I'm sorry, what? They don't
It's really interesting when you outline exactly, the seller's names, and that still comes over incorrect. Because ideally, when you get multiple offers, your client is ready to review them and sign off on one, not go back to have to now have a buyer initial all of the changes because the agent didn't do it correct. And also, if all things are equal and I've got a clean contract on one and one that did not follow the instruction, well, which one do you think you'd want to choose? Just say
it also says a lot about the experience of the realtor on the other end of the transaction.
That's right.
And one of the things that realtors are looking at are the other agent that they're going to
Yes.
have to work
That's
with.
right.
That's right.
That's right.
And just to add into that, it's the relationship. Another reason why we call the agent, because we don't know there's 50,000 realtors in Dallas Fort Worth. You can't know them all, but to establish a little bit of rapport with them, because if they have a good feeling about you as the buyer's agent, if all things are equal, and they say, this person was really professional, they cared about you, the seller, and doing what was right by you and getting you the best deal, and it's just about tactically how you position that. Conversely, if you don't do that, or you have an adversarial conversation with that listing agent, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
There's many times that we've won this year where the listing agent has said, thank you for your professionalism, thank you for the clean offer. You were close with others, but we felt you're the best people to deal with. And that makes a difference.
It does make a difference. I mean, we talk about that in the higher top producer circles all of the time, is the issue of having who you're working with on the other side of the transaction. And, there's a lot of agents that I don't know that they mean to, but there's just
fast.
Yeah, they're moving fast, and there's a lot going on. We keep saying be kind.
That's right.
now. Be kind to one another.
That's right.
Be professional. Make sure your contract's fully filled out correctly. It's those kind of things. I mean, everybody wants to get to the closing table.
That's right.
That's the goal.
That's right.
That's the only goal, is to, do your fiduciary responsibility by your clients and get to the closing table.
That's right.
And so one of the questions I asked, and I'm going to ask you guys this question, I asked this yesterday in my mastermind. How far are you willing to go to assist the agent on the other side if you can tell that they don't have the right experience, so that you do get the win the property for your client and get to the closing table? Are you willing to assist the agent on the other side?
Oh, sure. All the time.
Say they
We have.
swap earnest and
We have.
option fee, and put them in the
Yeah.
wrong blank
All the
shirt.
time.
That's right. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, look, everybody was new at some point, and needed a little help, and if they're an agent that's new and they don't have a team to help them on their end, definitely, if they've got a good buyer who wants to make a good offer, definitely.
It's all in how the information is communicated, and it's the dynamic. And
That's one thing we talked
That's
about.
exactly
exactly
too,
right.
is
The
So-
dynamic.
Not to be condescending, but to
Right.
come from a place of adding value.
Yeah.
Sometimes you offer assistance to help them, and it's resisted, and then you just have to step back and move on.
Mhm.
But if they're willing to accept the little bit of guidance or assistance, then it's about win-win for everyone,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't have to be an adversarial situation and an adversarial relationship. We work together to a common goal.
Correct.
We have to protect our sides, and we have our
course.
fiduciary responsibilities, but if we work together, then this happens.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Shifting gears. Are we shifting? Is our market shifting?
Shifting.
It's cracking. I'm seeing it. I'm starting to see a lot of price reductions. I'm starting to see a lot of back on markets and fewer offers. Now, geographically, there's going to be your hot spots that are still crazy, where they're going way above, but your areas that normally were slower appreciating or slower to sell, we're starting to see slowing down.
A little bit of slowing down?
Yep, just a little bit. We're just seeing some crack, just at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we've had conversation after conversation about buyer fatigue. And we know our sellers are attuned to what's going on in the market right now. And they are getting really demanding about what their house price should look like. My neighbor down the street sold for, $75,000 more.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
I had a client who they wanted to list for over $100,000 over market value.
Mm-hmm.
My client said, absolutely not.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you have to turn those down.
Yeah.
I mean, we as agents don't want to, and that actually creates part of the complication, right? Is there are people who either don't know, or they'll take a listing that's 30% above list price because they want the listing, or they want to meet that client's demands, whatever the reasoning is. And that just makes it a little bit harder, because then other people see that price. When we sit down at a listing table with a seller, oh, my neighbor's listed at this. Yes, they are. And they've been on the market for 25 days when everybody else is contracted in 5 or 2. So, but
This is 2018 again, right? the beginning first and second quarter of 2018, we had
that's
gangbusters.
right, crazy.
And then sellers got to
greedy.
up about
Yeah.
what they wanted. And so we saw that flattening in the third and fourth quarter and into the beginning of 2019 until sellers' expectations came back down
That's right.
with market expectations, right? Are we going to do that again?
Oh yeah, we're starting to see that now.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of
And
price
that's,
reductions.
And that's evidenced by my email box filled with all the emails that, come out usually on Thursday, price reduction, price reduction. So.
But isn't it interesting that we started the conversation about a house in Austin?
Yeah.
That's buyer
That's
that's
right.
spent $1 million in bought
That's right.
houses.
The market's smart, though. They know when something's overpriced. They don't mind paying more for something, but not if it's already overpriced. That seems to be my experience with the listings that we've had. When you price them right, you typically will sell them for above list in a short amount of time. But if you price it too high, then that's when you're doing the price reduction.
That's very important for
It's very
consumers
important.
to understand.
Yes, very important. And that is part of the expectation that we set with our clients in regards to that.
The belief system of the buyer, when buyers are savvy, they are on Zillow, they're on all over the internet.
And they're tired.
And they're and they're looking in the middle of the night when realtors are exhausted and
Yeah.
sleeping. They're up surfing so they know a geographic area. They have a good feel for what homes are selling for
That's right.
because they've lost out on bids.
Yeah.
So when they see that new listing that comes on that's significantly above their perceived value of that neighborhood, they won't even go look at the house because it gives their perception is the seller's unrealistic. And they won't even go look at the house. It reduces showings.
Well, back then, my favorite agent was the one that just put their foot down and just said, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
we're not doing this because it's a
right.
waste of everyone's time.
It is.
Right? And it's not going to end in a good result for you, and you're going to be frustrated with me, and you're not going to see my value, and yada, yada. There was a second tier of agent that was like, okay, we'll do it your way for 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's right.
And when it doesn't work out,
Yes.
That's right.
we're going to
That's
do it
right.
my way.
We're a
right.
combination of the two.
Yep,
If they're completely unrealistic, we just shake hands, part friends, because what we don't want is an adversarial situation. We don't want to be on the phone. Lisa handles our listings. She doesn't want to be on the phone every day with a seller who's upset because we're not getting the price that they want.
Right.
When we knew going in, we weren't going to get the price that they want.
That's right.
So it just it creates for a negative experience, and we just don't.
And it speaks to
that.
your professionalism level because you're willing to let the listing go if it's not the right fit.
Absolutely.
And there's just so many unfortunate, what is it? The average production take home of a realtor is like $60,000.
Nationally, at last I heard it was less than that.
I mean, that's not, not
Not a lot. I
a
think
lot.
Eight
And so
homes.
it creates desperation.
Yeah,
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
For the ones that aren't, that have to grab onto every
That's
listing
right.
that they get. Right. So
And we're seeing that right now because it is extremely hard to, especially if you're a buyer's agent. You might write 20. We wrote 30 offers for one client.
yeah, you told me about that.
I mean, that
Insane.
that was a lot. But when you take on a client, in my opinion, that's what you do, right? You agree to take on a client and you agree to take on their business, and as long as they're doing what they need to do, then we need to do what we need to do.
Let's shift gears again.
All right.
Let's talk about investment properties. One of my favorite things.
When can we get more?
Even though I can't buy one to save my life.
That's right. That's right.
You can.
Yes, I know, and we're going to discuss this. I will say, after our conversation the other night, I walked away and I was like, I'm so tired of this short-term rental thing. It sounds so hard. Just not hard, but time-consuming, right? And so you have to be able to be willing to dedicate time to it. But let's back up a second. So just investment properties in general. We all know that it's been very difficult for investors to find properties in DFW. I've got a lot of investor friends that are looking outside of the market.
Yep.
I do have some clients that are finding them, but a lot of it's working through wholesale groups and, off-market type of situations, we'll buy your house for cash kind of stuff.
Right.
What advice do you have for investors in this market right now? Yeah, that's all you can do.
That's right. That's right.
That's all you can
That's
do.
right.
I mean, it first starts with strategy. There are investors who are very long-term oriented and they don't care if it cash flows right now or not. Most of the investors that I work with are small investors, so they only own a few houses, and so cash flow is critical to them. So it's about a lot of due diligence. Don't overthink it. A lot of smaller investors have a tendency to want to visit the house and touch it and feel it. Yet they don't do that with their stock portfolio. If the numbers work
Interesting.
and the house works, if the data works, buy the house. You're going to get an inspection, right? Buy the house. it's a cost of doing business if the inspection comes back and you don't want the house. But you don't need to go walk every single investment property that you're going to buy.
And I haven't had any problem throwing an option fee down and losing it.
No, it's a
if
cost
the
of doing
deal
business.
doesn't work out. I've had to terminate, I don't know, 3 contracts in this market
Yep.
of things that didn't work out.
We've sold a number of houses this year via Zoom and Facebook. So as a realtor, we'll go to the house, we'll do the tour. We're going to be feet on the ground for you as an investor. We'll do a Zoom, but trying to get the investor there with their schedules and get in the house and write the offer, you lose a lot of time. You lose a lot of houses. You don't have time on investment property. So that's one key thing. And you got to come in heavy with money. Again, terms have to be significant. And then
20%, 30%, 40% down.
Heavy
Guaranteed
option fee, heavy everything. It's not always the most money. It depends on who owns the house. If you're buying it from a landlord, then it's going to be most money. If you're buying it from a homeowner, then it's going to be a combination of certainty and money. And it doesn't have to be long-term rental. You can look at short-term rental, Airbnb or VRBO. You can look at corporate housing by the week, by the month, furnished. And those are other avenues most people just look at. Will it cash flow on an annualized basis with an annual lease?
And I had another conversation with another person in the industry, and we kind of had a little bit of a difference. We talked about that, where, he's looking at all equity and appreciation, where I'm looking at it as, well, I want the house to pay for itself.
That's right.
I don't want to pay for it. So cash flow is important.
Cash flow. And one mistake that I see a lot of new investors make, because I've talked to a lot of them as I acquire them, or that misunderstandings they have when we first have a consultation, is they're calculating tax rate based on current tax assessed value.
The taxes, every year you get that mortgage shortage. If you have a loan,
That's right.
if you have a loan,
That's
if not,
right.
you just get the additional tax bill, right?
That's right.
And
it erodes at your cash flow over time, plus repairs, because you've got to do maintenance on the house.
That's right.
That's right.
Now, right now, there's a shortage of rental properties too.
Right. Yeah.
There
So
is.
You can get a lot more rent than normal. But what I'm finding is what you're paying to get into the house, there's still not enough skin in the game because of the way the market is right now.
And what is the tax? Many people, again, are calculating the taxes based on the current tax assessed value. We had a rental that when we turned it into a rental, it was $500 a month cash flow. In 6 years, it was $50 a month.
Yeah, because the taxes just kept increasing.
Because the taxes increased.
And you don't get homestead exemption.
You don't get homestead exemption.
You get no exemption
You
on
get no
it.
exemption on it. Yeah.
You get none.
You just get the big tax bill is basically what you get.
So how do you prepare for? How do you run the numbers so that you
just
prepare
calculate your tax rate by the purchase price.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's how they're going to assess it, but that's your safety net, if you will.
Okay.
If it cash flows at that, then you have a reasonable opportunity that it's going to be a good property for you.
Ideally, you want the rent to be able to go up every year.
Exactly. Exactly.
And a lot of people right now, because COVID has brought on some really interesting investment strategies for tenants. For landlords dealing with tenants. Aren't you guys are you the ones that are doing month to month on all of your properties? You do short-term rentals, which we'll talk about, but on your traditional rentals, are you still holding with a month to month policy?
So on one of them we are right now, just because we're tossing back and forth. If she'll pay a certain amount, we'll keep it as a long term. But if she decides she doesn't want to pay that, we'll make more money flipping that into a short term. And so, kind of just depends. Obviously, month to month works for the landlord because we get 30 days to let them know,
Well, and the eviction ban, we looked it up, it's up at the end of this month. And one of the major concerns for landlords was what happens if my tenants don't pay? And I can't get them out because they're in a lease. There were caveats to that.
Yes.
If they violated the lease for any other reason.
Correct. It was non-payment. You could not evict for non-payment. You could evict for other infractions or violations of the lease.
Yes.
Now, depending on where you're at in terms of jurisdictions, some judges were still not evicting, regardless of the reason. They were holding off. We had one experience with that. But that's going away July 1st, and really in Dallas-Fort Worth,
July 31st.
Yeah, thank you. In Dallas-Fort Worth, with all the investors I know, none of them have had a problem with people not paying due to COVID.
I had one try.
Right.
I said no.
And it worked.
And it worked.
I mean, because there are people who are just taking that as free money, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to, but you really do.
You're still responsible
You still
for
owe the money.
rent.
Of course.
July,
You're just delaying
August
just
1,
like
people are going to owe a lot of
Yeah,
money,
You're
right?
just delaying
That's
the
right.
inevitable,
Yeah.
and then you're going to get evicted.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because there are people who have unfortunate circumstances, and the landlords that I know work with their tenants as best they can. But you have to be willing to work with the landlord, and some people aren't.
And if any of my tenants had that kind of an issue and it was an actual issue, we would have had that conversation.
That's right.
The state of Texas came out with a rental assistance program that either the tenant or the landlord could apply for.
That's right.
For rental assistance. And so that was one way to kind of get around the issue of non-payment of rent,
That's right.
because I'm still responsible for the mortgage payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so luckily, you're right. Most of the landlords that I talk, or property managers that I talked to in the area, didn't necessarily have that problem.
Yeah, most landlords are good people. They want to help. They want to provide a quality product to quality tenants, and nobody wants to have evictions. It's an ugly process.
It's an ugly process, and then the tenant's going to have a hard time finding another place to live because now they have an eviction.
That's right.
On their record.
Yep.
So you guys have implemented, you have been looking at homes outside of the market, and you have turned, like you said, a bunch of your traditional rentals into short-term rentals.
Yes.
So let's talk about that, because we have a lot of people relocating here from other places, and they can't find a home.
That's right. That's right. There's a need. There's
Yeah.
definitely a need for a furnished short-term rental, whether you call it corporate housing, whether some people go through it and just Airbnb and looking for something that they can get month to month. And usually you can find a home, especially if you're a family relocating here. It's much better on your family to live in a home where you have bedrooms for the kids, a yard for the dog, and a garage for the car, and instead of hotel. I mean, the hotel, even the extended stay hotels don't provide you that space or even those amenities that you may need if you have pets. So that's been a real fit. The majority of the people that stay in our furnished short-term rentals are from out of state.
Yeah. How long do they typically stay, and what's the profit margin over a traditional rental?
They're staying anywhere from 30 days to a year. We have some that are in 8 months, 10 months, a year for various reasons. Interestingly enough, they're all not relocating in. Some are rehabbing homes here. Some are their grandparents coming in to stay, and they want a nice place to stay and have their children and grandchildren come and entertain. So there's a variety of reasons why people rent these. Profit margins should be a minimum of double what you would get as a long-term, could be as much as 4 to 5 times what you would generate cash flow-wise on a long-term. Very profitable when managed well.
But you also have to understand that if you aren't going to do it yourself, you're going to hire a property manager.
Yes.
So what is the typical fee for a property manager on these short-term rentals?
We're seeing 20 to 40% depending on geography. What I mean by that is in Dallas, I'm seeing 20 to 30%. Outside of Dallas, I've heard as much as 40% in other cities.
But you're
states.
analyzing the numbers, and you're still saying 40 to 50% more cash flow.
2 to 3 times more.
Or 2 to 3 times more. Okay.
So if you're cash flowing $6,000 or $7,000 on your long-term rental, you're going to double or triple that, even paying the 30% or 40%.
So let's run through what the costs are, because Lisa, you've done a lot of the setup for these.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to turn their traditional rental into short-term rental, what are they looking at as far as upfront costs and upfront time, and what do they need to do?
So the time it takes me to put one together is a solid 2 weeks, and that includes you have to buy furniture. You have to furnish it, and by furnishing that, you're also stocking the kitchen and providing necessities like an ironing board, linens, bedding, towels, etc. You're also paying all of the utilities on the house, because when the person does the rental, it's one fee and they get it all. So we include security system in our house. We include, obviously, lawn care is included, all of that. They basically just move in with a suitcase and any other personal items that they may need. Everything else is there. And we set them up so that it is conducive to those that work or school from home, since that's obviously something that is in high demand right now, a need for that. So setups like that. And also it needs to have all the appliances there. So it has to have a fridge and it has to have a washer and dryer. Yeah.
It would take me a little bit longer than 2 weeks.
I just have to say I'm married to her, and it takes 2 weeks from the time she's acquired all of the product.
Yeah, that's right.
There's
that's right.
days and days. I really think that if you just added up all the hours, it's an easy full month's work.
Yeah.
Because she's out
to set it.
procuring.
But once you do it,
Once it's set up,
then you're done.
then it's done.
But I think it's important to understand what you need to be prepared for in going through the setup process.
That's right.
Because it's not like your traditional rental where you just slap a sign up and, you know.
It's a service industry. This is a service business, and those occupants will call throughout the day. They'll call in the evening because something happened. They need something that you've agreed to provide that isn't there, or it broke. And then as a service provider, you have to deliver that service. So if that means at 8 or 9 o'clock at night you take care of something, or the next day you take care of something, so it is much more high maintenance than just an annual rent.
Well, before we wrap up, we do need to talk about reviews really quickly, because you do have to be concerned about that.
That's right. That's right.
Whereas a traditional rental, you're not concerned about.
That's right. That's how people find you, is the reviews of your property. Ideally, when your house is buttoned up and it's very, very clean, there's really not much to worry about. You know, we have everything ready to go and buttoned up before we get the first person in there. And then obviously as they move out, then there's a review of the house to make sure everything is ready for the next tenant. The calls that come in are usually things that you can't control. You know, the AC just stopped cooling. Well, then we get service person out there pretty quick. So.
Well, I think to add to that, it's the same philosophy that we employ with our real estate business, and that is over-deliver. And that is treat them like you want to be treated. When something happens, you deal with it. And we all make mistakes. That's our fault. You know, if something happens, just fix it. Be honest. Correct it. And whether it's paying an additional fee to have the service people come out, something happened with the plumbing, you get somebody there that day, not 3 days later. And that makes a difference. So when you get those testimonials, those reviews, it's yes, this happened. However, boy, they were on it. They took really great care of it. And we still get the high reviews. And many people don't even mention that in the review because it was just a blip in their day. It wasn't an inconvenience.
Well, and I think that's part of what makes us such great friends, is we see things the same way. Making sure that we add value and taking care of our clients and making sure everybody has a good experience with us. And if we do make a mistake, owning it and doing what we need to do to fix it.
That's right.
So I want to say thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate always when I get to spend time with you guys. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Spilling the LT. Please make sure that you go on to and subscribe, like, and share our post and our videos so that you stay in tune with everything that we have coming up. All real estate related. Thank you again, and have a great day.